Hello and welcome to the Play-by-Play, a sports media talk show from Awful Announcing, where we are just as upset as everyone else as YouTube TV subscribers here. Brendan, I think most of the staff, if I'm not mistaken, is probably a YouTube TV subscriber. I only know of one or two of us that is actually subscribed to like a different provider. Is this blackout affecting you?
I am still a child and do not pay for cable and mooch off of relatives. So that's my situation. So I can't exactly complain here on any of these. And that's probably part of why a lot of them just kind of blow over in my head and we cover the updates as they come. And I just tend to assume, hey, this will get figured out. Who really cares? Whatever. But clearly, with the popularity of YouTube, the obvious popularity of ESPN's football content, like this one has really blown up. And I think both sides have egg on their face right now.
You're completely right. And we're going to get into it all here. We're recording Tuesday, November 4th. It is 2 p.m. Eastern time. And yeah, that is the story of the day. This carriage dispute between Disney and YouTube TV has gone into extra innings here. For one of the rare instances where we missed a Monday Night Football game. We missed an NFL broadcast because of a carriage dispute. If you were on social media last night, I'm sure you had people on your feed talking about it. This dispute started last Thursday night into Friday morning. YouTube TV has kicked off all the Disney channels from its platform as they try to hammer out a new distribution deal. And YouTube TV subscribers have not had access to any of those Disney-owned networks for 5 days now. So they've missed an entire weekend of college football, and last night, a Dallas Cowboys Monday Night Football game, which, if you look at the history of these disputes, a lot of times they get figured out at the 11th hour right before an important event like Monday Night Football happens. That did not happen last night. And so now we're really getting into the nitty gritty. This is a serious situation. No one is really sure when this is going to get resolved. So Brendan, I pose this question to you. Like, how do you see this dispute? Were you surprised that there was not a deal done prior to Monday Night Football last night?
I was surprised. Yeah. Like I said, I just kind of assume these things will always get figured out. You know, you had a pretty significant backlash. I mean, just among media, like pretty prominent people like Boston Connor from the McAfee show went viral, Taylor Lewan, Big Cat from Barstool, like these people who I think have a more plugged in approach to talking to fans. We're right on top of this, which should tell you a lot. JJ Watt as well, that not only are they just being genuine that they're bothered by it, but I think also the fact that these people's audiences are responding should tell you that the average sports fan is pretty pissed off. And so this is why they usually get figured out in time, because, you know, you have ESPN on one hand trying to use its talent, which they've done almost every time, recording these videos and putting out messages to request that basically ESPN fans, which we can discuss if that exists anymore, go put, send a carefully worded email to YouTube if they subscribe and are in danger of losing these games. And that backfired, right? So I think that's why I say both of these companies don't look good. Nobody's winning here, and least of all the fans who can't watch the games. And I just think, right, we kind of have to talk about the promise of YouTube here to really understand why, which is that this service, which, I read Andrew Marchand's column on it earlier on Monday. He reminded me that this service cost $35 when it launched 8 years ago, and it's more than tripled. And, I'm not an economist. I'm not going to be able to calculate out whether that's a proper increase based on inflation or whatever. But the bottom line is you're going to piss people off if you do that. The whole point is that you're supposed to be coming in below the cable companies who everybody hates and be this more affordable, more, just the stuff you want alternative, and then you can't get the stuff people want and you're no longer affordable. we're running out. I think YouTube is running out of grace among its subscribers here.
Right. And I think our own Matt Yoder actually had a good column about this a month or two ago when I think it was the Fox and YouTube TV dispute was going on, how YouTube TV is pretty much just cable now, which I think for people like us that follow this industry, that's what we expected, right? Like when YouTube TV launched at $35 several years ago, it didn't have a lot of the same offerings that a full cable subscription would have. So of course, when YouTube TV gets a fuller offering and has ESPN, has TNT Sports, has Fox Sports, it's going to get more expensive, right? You know, I'm the same way. I'm not an economist. I can't tell you if this is a inflation adjusted, you know, a fair price. One would assume that they've probably tried to increase their margins during that time as well, especially considering how many subscribers they've gained since that point.
Exactly. But once you're one of the big players, you don't have to have the cost value add anymore, and you can just play like, you know, your competitors play, and that's part of what I think is rubbing people the wrong way.
Right. The surprising thing to me so far is that I feel like during these disputes, normally fans pick and choose one side that they like to blame. This time around, I've seen an equal amount of blame on both sides. I think fans are rightfully understanding that this is two mega corporations that are, you know, kind of using the consumer as a pawn here, and neither one is in, you know, the right here. I think I should go back real quick and just kind of explain this specific carriage dispute, because they all have kind of unique properties. You know, Comcast with NBC Sports last month kind of had this interesting issue over ingestion. You know, Charter back in 2023, when they were doing a deal with Disney, had an interesting dispute over whether or not they would be able to bundle like Disney Plus and Hulu into their cable offering. So there's always,
and that's been common. That the streaming stuff has been like the most frequently cited and sticking point lately. But you're right that each of them is a little different.
But this one is pretty straightforward, right? This one, by all accounts, all the reports, it's specifically overpricing. So it's how much is YouTube TV going to pay Disney for each one of its subscribers for each channel per month. So that's essentially the fee that they're haggling over. And everything has indicated that the two sides are still far apart. And I know I wrote something yesterday about how if you math it out, YouTube TV has about 10 million subscribers. Disney typically charges around $15 a month per subscriber to the distributors. So if you math it out, that comes out to about $150 million a month, $5 million a day. That's kind of the ticking time bomb on Disney's end, right? Like, how long do they want to, you know, haggle over this price while they're losing that much money being off of YouTube TV's platform every single day?
Plus advertising losses in the lack of viewership for the games potentially too, which might, you know, again, how do you account that out? We don't know, but that's also taking a hit on a game like Monday Night Football when these millions of people aren't tuned in and can't watch, you know, a Frito-Lay ad or whatever.
Yeah, and that's going to cost them money in what's called make goods to the advertisers. If they're not meeting certain viewership thresholds, that they'll have to compensate advertisers for not meeting those thresholds. And then on the YouTube TV side, obviously, there's people that are canceling their YouTube TV subscriptions because they don't have access to this content. So there's a ticking time bomb on that side as well. And that's why these disputes typically get solved in due time, right? So I think, if I'm handicapping this and I'm looking at next Monday night, I think it's more likely than not that we have a deal before the next Monday Night Football game.
Which is Eagles-Packers. So exactly. I think the anger is going to be multiplied exponentially if that's the missed game. Because I got my Cardinals hat on, Drew. I don't think anyone gives a shit about watching that game outside of Cowboys fans yesterday.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, for the first time, I was not tuned into a Monday Night Football. I decided, it's opening night for college basketball. I guess I'll just pretend the NFL doesn't exist. But if you had asked me, when this dispute started on Thursday night, would they have a deal done by Monday Night Football? I would have absolutely said, yeah, like they probably will. But if you look back at Disney's most recent major carriage disputes, you just have to go back a year to 2024 when at the beginning of the NFL season they were in a dispute with DirecTV over many of these same issues, over price, over subscriptions. And they actually stayed dark on DirecTV for the debut of Monday Night Football that year. So this is not unprecedented for Disney to make consumers and make the distributors that they're negotiating with feel the pain a little bit, right? Mm-hmm. I'm sure YouTube TV is looking at their subscriber numbers from last night. They're seeing a lot more cancellations than they would have maybe even during college football on Saturday. So I think this is kind of Disney's MO these days to say, we can afford to let them miss one Monday Night Football game and really see how many people care about the NFL and how many people care about having ESPN content. And oh, by the way, like on the margins, ESPN and Disney are probably benefiting from this because some of those people that are going to cancel YouTube TV are going to go and buy Hulu Plus Live TV or Fubo, which are both owned by Disney, or, ESPN's new direct-to-consumer app, of course. I don't think like that is the main motivation. Like some of the people I've seen out there are saying that's a bit of a conspiracy that, Disney wants all these people to subscribe to their services instead of YouTube TV. I think they're agnostic personally. I think they don't care how you subscribe. They want you in the bundle first and foremost, but they do want to make YouTube TV feel a little bit of pain, and maybe they can get closer on price once that happens.
I think that, well, so let's state too that I read John Oran wrote this morning that, or last night, that YouTube seems to be telling him that they haven't felt significant burn on cancellations yet. Now, of course, they're going to say that. Why would they be like, yeah, millions of people cut the cord on us? Tell it, write that in puck, But that's what he said. So we'll see. Again, like we're never going to know the numbers, but if YouTube compromises first, that probably tells us they were talking out of the wrong side of their mouth on that one. But I think that we're in this point in time, Drew, where I actually think that cable companies, and I want to circle back to whether YouTube should even be talked about that way, but let's pretend like they are for right now, are actually being seen as like the little guys. And I think that that's kind of part of where we're at here. So this JJ Watt tweet got a lot of reaction. It's on the screen on YouTube for people watching. Crazy part is I have some sort of subscription because I watch Espanol matches on ESPN Plus, but I can't watch Monday Night Football. I don't understand it. I don't really care to figure it out. Just frustrating, all of it. And I think JJ Watt spoke for a lot of people there, and that's why his tweet got picked up so much. Now, JJ Watt can afford to probably buy a subscription company by himself if he wanted to, so I'm not really upset on JJ Watt's behalf, but I do think that people just feel that way right now. Like they just are at this point where they're fed up with the confusion, the never being able to keep up with what they need to have and how to get to it and when to get to it and the exceptions and all of that sort of stuff, right? Like for me, like I had messaged you a little bit and I'm like, Monday Night Football is on ABC. I get Monday Night Football, as I told you. I don't even have to mooch off of my family members for cable because it's on ABC. I have a little freaking antenna on my entertainment center, and as long as it's pointed in the right direction and I know the number to go to, which in Phoenix it's 15, I can watch the damn game. And ESPN made that very easy for us like 3 years ago when all the Monday Night Football games started to be put onto ABC. That's the same for Vanderbilt and Texas, for instance, on Saturday, right? But even that, like, I don't think people know that. I don't think people understand those distinctions didn't really matter if you just bought cable and didn't think about it for the past 30 years of your life. And now all of a sudden you're like, why are they messing with a good thing and raising prices on me? Fuck all of these people. I just want it to end, and I think that that's where a lot of people are. And so I think if you then go to the ESPN side of it, that's why that's why I think that the idea of like cable, even though people hate their cable companies, it's been a hassle to cancel it or renegotiate. Like everyone complains about having cable, but cable is like this normal, this kind of like my lifestyle that I chose kind of thing. Whereas now the bad guys are the streamers, the content companies, the ESPNs, basically the Disneys, who are messing with that. And that's why I think that that frustration and that confusion bleeds over more to ESPN here, right? Where there's just been so much noise and chatter about, hold on, I have to have the app to get WWE, but my cable company's not actually giving me WWE, which I know you and Ben talked about on the show a couple of weeks back, and that hasn't really gotten much better since you guys talked about it from everything that I've seen. The NFL media deal, which again, talk about confusion. I don't think people know what the hell's going on with that. Meanwhile, Red Zone keeps adding commercial by commercial by commercial and ruining that product, which that's not even ESPN's fault, but people think it is or whatever, you know. I got to get Netflix to watch the Chiefs on Christmas. I got to get Amazon to watch the Thanksgiving and Black Friday stuff. I got, you know, on down the line. And I think that it's just hitting this fever pitch, and like, it's not ESPN's fault in and of itself that they're like getting that all pinned to them right now, but I think that they are. And I think that people are just tired of it, but I also don't know where it goes. I don't really think that there's any like, I say all that and I can sympathize, but I also don't really, it's not like I can say, well, just hold on for this innovation to come and then it'll all be better in a year. I don't think that that's gonna, I think that it's just a sign of probably worse frustration to come on the part of sports fans and customers here.
I think there's a lot to what you just said. You know, the people yearn for the old days of cable, Brendan. But in all seriousness,
we didn't know what a good thing we had,
right?
Or that you had that I stole.
Well, I've never actually had a standard cable bundle, but the YouTube TV has been that replacement for me. But in any case, I think you're onto something, because think about it, right? Sports rights continue to increase. It continues to become a larger percentage of what these media companies are spending every year on content. You know, there's always talk about have live sports rights hit a bubble. You know, obviously cable subscriptions are going down. We're down from, you know, about 100 million households that paid for a cable bundle at its peak to now around 65 million in this country. Yet sports rights are still going up. And it's because, you know, obviously sports are one of the only things keeping people still in that bundle. So when you get into these negotiations now, and companies like ESPN are paying more for the content they have, but are now having fewer subscribers paying for it, you have to square that circle somehow. So this is why these negotiations are getting so intense and so drawn out, is because they have to squeeze every penny possible they can out of these distributors, or else the economics of what they're paying for just simply do not add up. And so more and more, you know, the consumers are the ones bearing the brunt of this, having to deal with blackouts all the time, because otherwise, like, you know, if ESPN isn't using the full amount of leverage they have, and I feel like I'm defending ESPN, I'm not. I'm trying to give the logic of why this is happening more and more. You know, we didn't see blackouts like this quite as much or quite as intense back in the day. It's because this is dire for ESPN. You know, every penny that they're able to get out of each subscriber, you know, means that they can afford to pay for these sports rights that are only getting more expensive. I mean, look at the NBA deal. ESPN's paying over $2 billion a year for that. Same goes with the NFL. And guess what? The NFL is going to come to the negotiating table early with its rights. And that doesn't, you know, that's great for the NFL. That's not necessarily great for ESPN, who's going to have to shell out even more money for the most important programming it has. So it's like, how else are they going to generate more revenue?
Exactly.
Yeah,
it's like the industry is being disrupted. It doesn't mean we're shills for ESPN to acknowledge that companies are having to break themselves and rebuild themselves on the fly here if you're stuck between two eras, right? Like ESPN was a cash cow in that cable business, and now it has to become something else on the fly. And like, I can also sit here and explain to you why the WWE PLEs are on the streaming app exclusively, and I can tell you the business case for why that's actually smart, but it doesn't mean that it's easy for sports fans, and it also doesn't mean that that is going to solve ESPN's problem, right? Like, it's everybody's losing unless you happen to be an IP holder, a rights holder, like the SEC, the NBA, the NFL. Those companies are the ones in this market that are gonna succeed, and then the ones that are treating tech or treating content as a little, side dish for their main business, like Amazon and Apple, or Netflix, who were way ahead of this and already have a fully fleshed out business model that ESPN's trying to catch up to. Like, those people are going to thrive here too. But ESPN still has to milk this for all that they can, while also trying to jump into what's next. And that's why they're stuck, and that's why they're having their talent go out and beg and grovel the way that they are. But I wanted to circle back to the YouTube part of this too, because that I mentioned earlier, of like, are they actually a cable company? This graphic's from 2023. Yes, it's from Wikipedia, but I checked the numbers. They cited their sources. Just go with it here. And it's also old, like I said. So as Drew mentioned already, YouTube has actually more like 10 million subscribers now. I would imagine that those top 4, which are more traditional cable companies, have all ticked downward a little bit, meaning that YouTube is effectively one of the big boys now. Like, they've caught up. And part of what is that they're at odds with ESPN with Disney over. We keep saying ESPN, but this actually includes like FX and whatever else, right? Like the whole Disney umbrella of cable networks, of which ESPN is the most must-have of them. They want the type of treatment that those other big companies have gotten for a long time, where they're locked into certain rates. They get certain
the most favored
negotiating
nations clauses,
exactly,
so they're protected.
Yeah. If you have a quick way of explaining that, by all means. It's kind of nerdy and whatever.
Yeah, well, it's just like any other economies of scale, right? So if you have more subscribers, you're able to negotiate lower rates with ESPN or Disney. YouTube TV is now, the 4th or the 3rd largest pay TV distributor in the country. And they're projected, actually, as, the Comcasts and the Charters continue to decline. YouTube TV is actually growing. So they're actually projected to become the largest pay TV distributor in the country by next year. I believe Sports Business Journal reported that, or at least cited some analysts that were saying that. So YouTube TV is wanting one of two things. They either want to get the same rates that the Comcasts and the Charters are getting for ESPN, because they're going to be the big dog on campus eventually, or they want a shorter term deal. So like a 1-year or a 2-year deal, whereas these deals are typically done for around 3 or 4 years, because then when they renegotiate, they will be the big dog on campus. So obviously, Disney does not want to get, concede that at this point. And that's why we have a bit of this dispute. But to get to your question is YouTube a cable company now? Are they trying to emulate that? I think when we look at YouTube's bigger business, right, there's been such a huge emphasis on getting people that watch free YouTube, user-generated content on YouTube, not YouTube TV, to start watching that content on their television screens. That's been such a huge push for the company, because when you watch on television screens, you're getting better ad rates, you're able to insert more ads than you would on mobile. And so
you're directly stealing viewers from the competitors that they've always seen themselves as usurping. And it's actually like direct choice. I'm watching YouTube instead of Monday Night Football, for instance.
Exactly. So the whole structure is way more valuable for YouTube when you can have viewers watching on their television screens. So YouTube TV is a part of that, right? Imagine all the integration that you could have between YouTube TV and normal YouTube just around live sports. I mean, when we had this YouTube NFL game earlier this year, think about all the co-streams that YouTube's top content creators did for that game. YouTube sees a bigger picture here, and YouTube TV can be part of that. And so I do think, like, whereas for Amazon or Netflix or Apple, maybe less so Amazon, but Apple and Netflix might see live sports as ancillary, as kind of, I know I wrote a column about Apple seeing it as a vanity project one time.
Everything's a vanity project for Apple.
I think for YouTube, I think for YouTube is a bit more core to their business. So I think that's why they are willing to dig in a little here.
Interesting. Yeah, I just think that the future of where this is going, and like this is a long-term future, so probably it's not something that they can actually be making current day business decisions based upon, is the game that was on the first Friday of the season, where they have the infrastructure and the ad set up and the monetization ready to go, where they can just host games. And maybe it's not free. Maybe you pay $1.99 or I don't know, whatever, $8.99 someday to get it. And YouTube and how it works feels a lot closer to the future than them copying cable. But YouTube TV to me is almost just like a flex. It's like, we beat you at your own game, and now you're going to pay us what you have to pay everybody else, and like nana boo boo a little bit. Like, you know what I mean? I think that that's just kind of how I see that. But at the same time, I think that is also clearly like a part of what's going on here, where they want to be taken seriously and paid like they're one of these top cable companies, because they are. But even they don't feel like they're really, I don't know, like obviously this is going to get sorted out. So I can't say that that they don't care about this business, but it's almost like secondary to them. They don't really have to make Disney happy in this negotiation, because they're trying to beat Disney on the side. And it's not even on the side, actually. It's with the actual thing, right? Meanwhile, I think that ESPN and any other company like it, Disney, whatever, is looking at this and saying, well, why are we going to play nice with you as you also compete with us in this other way, right? And I think that it's a micro example of the broader thing that's going on, where these companies dabble as distributors and platforms. That's the same thing with like Amazon channels, for instance. These things where, it in a different kind of country that wouldn't be allowed, but here we are. And so, these content companies have to square the difference, and ESPN's caught at the middle of it. And as a result, their customers are caught at the middle of it. And it's just making everybody super mad. And it's just like, I don't know where or how that is going to change anytime soon.
Yeah, I agree. And, this dispute will get solved. Like you said, it'll probably even get solved pretty soon. But that doesn't make it any less shitty that paying subscribers to YouTube TV just had to miss an entire weekend of college football, an NFL game, opening night of college basketball, like all this content that they paid for, or at least thought they were paying for when they signed up for YouTube TV, was not available to them this weekend. And it like you said, it only seems like it's going to get worse from here on out rather than better, until there's some sort of major disruption, major rebundling in the industry that is actually consumer friendly. But Brendan, I think that's a great place to leave this conversation. Hopefully, for the sake of my sports watching habits and the sports watching habits of 10 million YouTube TV subscribers.
Buy a satellite.
Yeah, I know. I need to buy an antenna. That's really what needs to happen.
Antenna. Yeah, that's what I meant to say.
Yeah. Hopefully we won't be discussing this next week as well, because then we're in much deeper shit. But Brendan, thank you once again for joining us here. For our listeners, please remember to like, subscribe, rate, review the podcast. That all helps us tremendously. We hope to have you back later this week. But for now, see you later.